You know that moment when someone says, "Oh, I can't eat that. I have a food allergy."
Mm.
It's almost commonplace now, isn't it? Peanuts, milk, shellfish. And you might wonder, well, I often do, why our bodies sometimes mistake something harmless for, like, a dangerous invader.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's precisely what we're diving into today.
And it's a good question because for a long time, the underlying reasons behind food allergies have been, well, a bit of an enigma.
Right.
We understood the immune system was involved, sure, but the precise way our bodies learn to accept, the countless proteins in our food remain somewhat mysterious.
But some really compelling new research has just emerged, published in Nature, actually.
That's the one.
And it's shedding light on a crucial piece of this puzzle. Scientists have actually identified a new type of immune cell right in our gut.
In the gut, yeah.
And it appears to be fundamental in preventing food allergies. It does this by promoting what's called tolerance.
Tolerance, yes. Essentially the opposite of an allergic reaction.
So, for everyone listening, our mission today is to understand this newly discovered cell type.
How it operates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when it doesn't function correctly, potentially leading to those allergic reactions.
We'll be exploring the implications of this study and discussing what it could mean for, future allergy treatments.
Definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, our immune system has this incredibly delicate balancing act it has to perform, right?
It really does.
It needs to be on high alert for genuine threats like infections, but at the same time, it needs to be completely chill with things that aren't dangerous, like the food we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
This whole idea of tolerance to food, how does our body even learn to make that distinction?
That's the core challenge. I mean, the immune system is inherently reactive.
Yeah.
It's designed to identify and neutralize anything it perceives as foreign.
Mm-hmm.
So tolerance, in this context, it's the learned ability of the immune system to not react to specific harmless stuff like food proteins. And it's not just passive, like a lack of response. It's an active process, recognition and acceptance.
Okay, so enter these newly identified tolerogenic dendritic cells. That's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, yeah.
What exactly are they, and where in our bodies are they hanging out?
So think of these tolerogenic dendritic cells as a specialized group of immune cells, and they're situated right in the lining of your intestines.
The gut lining. Makes sense.
Well, yeah, the intestines are such a crucial interface, right? Constantly interacting with the outside world through food, microbes.
Everything we swallow.
Pretty much. So it makes perfect sense that this is a key location for establishing the state of tolerance.
Okay, so their main job, their primary role, is to dial down the immune system's reaction to food proteins.
That's the gist of it. Suppress that response.
What happens when they don't do their job effectively? The study mentioned a connection to both food allergies and, interestingly, even asthma in mice.
Precisely. The research they did in mice showed that when these tolerogenic dendritic cells aren't working properly, or maybe they're just not there in sufficient numbers, the immune system becomes much more likely to launch an inappropriate inflammatory response to food proteins.
Leading to allergies.
Ultimately, yeah, leading to the development of food allergies. And what's particularly interesting, like you said, is that this malfunction in the gut also seemed to correlate with a higher susceptibility to asthma in these animal models.
Wow.
Which suggests, maybe a broader role in immune regulation that goes beyond just food.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The study emphasized the importance of two specific proteins, RORγt and Prdm16.
Right, RORγt and Prdm16.
They're needed for these tolerogenic dendritic cells to work right. What are these proteins doing? How do they help keep things tolerant?
Okay, think of RORγt and Prdm16 as, well, kind of like the on switches for these tolerance-promoting cells.
Okay, switches.
They're transcription factors. That means they control which genes within the cell are active, which ones are turned on or off.
Right.
So in these specific tolerogenic dendritic cells, RORγt and Prdm16 are essential. They equip the cells with the necessary tools to effectively suppress those inflammatory immune responses against harmless food proteins.
So they make sure the safe signal gets sent.
They help ensure that, that these proteins are recognized as safe and don't trigger an immune attack. And the mouse study really hammered this home.
How so?
Well, without properly functioning tolerogenic dendritic cells, and presumably because these key proteins weren't working right, the mice just lost that protective tolerance. They became allergic.
Now, this isn't the first time this particular research team has looked into these kinds of cells, is it? I feel like I read something about their earlier work, something about gut bacteria.
That's correct, yeah. This research definitely builds on previous discoveries from the same lab. They had found that these RORγt-expressing cells in the gut, the same ones, essentially also play a vital role in maintaining tolerance to the trillions of beneficial bacteria living in our intestines.
Ah, the good microbes.
The good guys, exactly. The ones crucial for digestion and, they even influence other systems throughout the body.
Right.
What's so compelling about this new study is that while the researchers previously knew these cells were important for tolerating gut bacteria, their precise identity, like what kind of cell they were, and whether they had a wider role in tolerating other things, like food, that was largely an open question.
I see.
So this new work really broadens our understanding of what they actually do.
So, okay, these tolerogenic cells belong to the dendritic cell family. Now, for listeners maybe not steeped in immunology, could you break down the key difference between these tolerogenic ones and the, let's say, typical dendritic cells?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a key distinction. So typically, dendritic cells act like sentinels for your immune system.
The watchmen.
Kind of, yeah. When they encounter foreign invaders, like bacteria or viruses, they capture fragments of them. These fragments are called antigens. Think of them like little ID tags.
Okay.
Then they present these antigens to other immune cells, specifically T cells. This presentation basically alerts the T cells. It primes them to recognize and attack anything carrying that specific antigen in the future.
So that kicks off the immune response, the attack.
That's the trigger for the standard immune response, exactly. The alarm bell.
Okay, so that's the standard alarm mode. How do these tolerogenic dendritic cells work differently? What's their unique approach?
Right, so instead of setting off an alarm, these tolerogenic dendritic cells, when they encounter antigens from food or those friendly gut microbes, they present these antigens to T cells in a completely different way. It actually causes the T cells to become anti-inflammatory.
Anti-inflammatory T cells.
We call these specialized T cells regulatory T cells, or TREGs for short.
TREGs. Okay.
So the crucial difference is the message they deliver. Instead of saying attack, they're essentially signaling this is safe, stand down.
And what do these regulatory T cells, these TREGs, actually do when they bump into that same food antigen again later?
Good question. When these TREGs encounter that same food antigen in the future, their job is to actively suppress inflammation in the surrounding tissues.
Suppress it? How?
They release signaling molecules that basically dampen the activity of other immune cells, preventing them from launching an allergic reaction.
Ah, so they're like the peacekeeping force in the gut?
That's a great analogy. Yes, the peacekeeping force of your immune system, specifically for these harmless antigens.
That makes perfect sense. So the study showed in those mice lacking the tolerogenic dendritic cells, they didn't have enough peacekeepers, the TREGs.
Exactly.
And instead, they had an overabundance of the inflammatory attack T cells reacting to food.
Precisely. Without the tolerogenic dendritic cells doing their job, generating those TREGs, the whole balance shifts. The immune system becomes much more likely to misinterpret harmless food proteins as threats, kicking off allergies and inflammation.
But, okay, this key research was done in mice. What about us humans? Do we have these cells? Does it work the same way for us? That's the big question, right?
It's the critical question, absolutely. And the researchers specifically looked into this.
Good.
By carefully analyzing human intestinal tissue samples and also digging into publicly available genetic sequencing data, they were able to identify the human equivalents of these tolerogenic dendritic cells.
Wow, okay. So they found them in humans too.
They did, and that's a really significant finding because it strongly suggests this fundamental mechanism of food tolerance is likely relevant to human health as well.
That's fantastic news. But the study did mention there are still some unknowns in humans, like how many we have or if they work elsewhere.
That's absolutely right. Identifying the human counterparts is a major step, for sure, but there are still many avenues for future research. Well, we don't yet know the precise number of these cells in different people, or if variations in their numbers or maybe how well they function could contribute to why some people develop food allergies and others don't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also their potential role in other forms of immune tolerance, maybe outside the gut or in autoimmune conditions. That's a really exciting area for ongoing investigation. Still lots to figure out.
Okay, so looking at the bigger picture then, this discovery, It sounds like it has some really promising potential for new ways to treat food allergies down the road. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, identifying these cells opens up really exciting new possibilities for developing targeted therapies.
Targeted how?
Well, imagine, as the lead researcher, Dr. Lippman, suggested, say someone suffers from a peanut allergy.
Okay.
Perhaps we could find ways to harness the power of these tolerogenic dendritic cells to help generate more of those peanut-specific regulatory T cells, the TREGs.
Boost the peacekeepers for that specific allergy.
Exactly. This could potentially lead to treatments that directly address the underlying cause of the allergy by suppressing the allergic response itself, not just managing the symptoms like we often do now.
That would be a true game changer for so many people, so many families.
It really would.
So, what are the immediate next steps for the researchers? What are the key questions they're trying to answer now?
Well, Dr. Lippman indicated their current focus is really on delving deeper into the fundamental biology of these cells. They're fascinating cells.
The basic science first.
Right. They want to understand precisely how and where these tolerogenic dendritic cells develop in the body. Like, what are their precursor cells?
Where do they come from?
Yeah, and what specific signals, what environmental cues are necessary for them to mature and function correctly. Answering those kinds of fundamental questions will be crucial for figuring out how we might eventually manipulate these cells therapeutically.
Got it. And just to give a bit more context for everyone listening, this important research was spearheaded by Dr. Dan Lippman at NYU Langone Health.
That's right.
And as we mentioned, published in the journal Nature, the study got crucial support through grants from the National Institutes of Health.
Which is vital for this kind of foundational work.
Definitely. And it's also worth noting, just for transparency, that Dr. Lippman has co-founded several biotech companies and serves on advisory boards in the industry.
Which is important context, yeah.
Yeah.
It shows the potential link between this basic research and real-world applications down the line.
So to sort of bring it all together for you, the listener, the key takeaway from this deep dive is really the exciting discovery of these specialized cells, these tolerogenic dendritic cells in the gut.
They play this vital role in teaching our immune system that food is safe.
Preventing those often debilitating, sometimes life-threatening allergic reactions.
Exactly. This research gives us a critical new piece in that complex puzzle of food allergies. By identifying these cells and starting to understand how they work, we've really unlocked some truly promising possibilities for developing more targeted, more effective treatments in the years ahead.
It really makes you appreciate just how intricate and, I don't know, finely tuned the balance within our immune system is.
It's incredible, isn't it?
This remarkable ability to both fiercely protect us and peacefully coexist with the world around us, like our food, makes you wonder, what other seemingly straightforward processes in our bodies might have similarly complex, fascinating mechanisms humming away underneath, just waiting to be uncovered.
That's a great thought to end on. There's still so much to learn about how we work.
Definitely something profound to consider.